Remember the term Halo killer? Only a few years ago, Halo was the shooter that all others aspired to be. Games like Killzone would come out and everyone would make a big deal about whether or not it would be the game to usurp Halo's throne. Looking back, it's so weird to think that this series about a green spaceman and his sassy AI companion fighting aliens on a giant colorful ring in space, as well as the teabagging phenomenon it created with its multiplayer, were seen as the epitome of bro gamer culture and the death of gaming in the eyes of some people. Remember all that? It wasn't that long ago, but it seems like such a different time compared to how gaming is now. Whatever happened to Halo's legendary status? Why does it seem like this franchise has been pushed to the corner with little discussion or focus on in the gaming landscape? Halo 5 came out at the end of last year, and while it's hard to get a straight answer about sales, its launch seemed almost clandestine. While some reports say it was the most profitable launch in the series, others report that in reality it sold some of the fewest actual copies in the history of the franchise and only made so much profit due to bundles and other hardware tie-ins being included in the same figures. Suffice to say, Microsoft would rather not wave around poor sales for everyone to see if they had the choice, but it's clear that Halo has gone from one of gaming's biggest giants to a series that's a shadow of its former self in terms of importance and relevance. Well, I've always liked the Halo games, and recently I got an Xbox One and played through all of the mainline entries from 1 to 5, including ODST and Reach. It was a really refreshing experience and had me wondering whatever happened to the series. So today I wanted to speculate on some of the reasons the series has lost its steam in recent years, so it can possibly learn from its mistakes in the future.
Got an escape plan?
Thought I'd try shooting my way out. Mix things up a little.
Naturally, let's begin with the departure of its creator, Bungie. After developing Halo Reach, Bungie parted ways with the franchise, leaving it at a fitting conclusion. For a lot of fans, this signified the end of the franchise, as a Halo without the people who started and fostered it from the ground up wouldn't really be Halo to them. This means there are a lot of faithful Bungie fans who just aren't interested in playing or supporting the newer games, and that's understandable. Now that Bungie has left and a new trilogy has started at the request of Microsoft, it does come across as a franchise that only continues to exist because it's a recognizable brand, and I'm sure that delegitimizes the games in the eyes of a lot of people, at least to some degree. It just doesn't have that sense of greatness behind it anymore that made it something that so many people wanted to talk about and be a part of, so I guess it's just something that people can easily disregard these days. And of course, what plays a big role in focus shifting away from the series is Bungie themselves taking their talents elsewhere to create another incredibly successful shooter in the form of Destiny. For a lot of people, Destiny is a bigger, better Halo, and because it's made by Bungie, a lot of their fans have followed them over to that game. I constantly hear people talk about Destiny in my day-to-day life, just like I used to hear about Halo, and these aren't the type of people who play a lot of video games. It has a lot of things that people liked about Bungie's Halo games with its quality shooting mechanics and grand vistas, but in a more expansive, multifaceted package that continues to bring people back by encouraging them to replay missions with their friends. Personally, I wasn't really impressed by the game when I bought its initial release, but I've heard that it's continued to improve with the release of The Taken King, so I'm interested in giving it another shot at some point and seeing where it goes as a franchise in the future. With Bungie off captaining their own hugely successful franchise, that leaves the Halo franchise in the hands of a less seasoned developer known as 343 Industries, who have been tasked with creating a whole new set of games.
Not gonna lie to you, Lieutenant. You're stepping into some shoes the rest of the squad would rather leave unfilled.
Named after Halo's 343 Guilty Spark, they were formed by Microsoft specifically to create more Halo games after Bungie left, and that's all they've done since their inception. A lot of fans of Bungie's Halo games aren't a fan of what 343 has done with the design of the series or where they've taken its story. For example, 343's Halo games follow a much more modern story-heavy design formula, with a lot of dialogue-heavy cutscenes, smaller levels, many scripted sequences that take control away from the player, and QuickTime events. The thing about Halo is that it's always had an evolving story and an expansive extended universe through other forms of media, but the games themselves were easy-to-grasp, fairly light-hearted space adventures about a super soldier punching aliens in the face. You didn't have to understand the intricacies of the universe to have fun with them, and I definitely think that was intentional on Bungie's part. 343 brings all of it to the forefront, and because of that, Halo 4's story specifically ended up being kind of confusing and hard to follow. I feel like 343 felt they needed to prove themselves worthy to continue the franchise in the eyes of the fans by putting a larger emphasis on the story and world detailed in the franchise's related works. Maybe they even looked at how much acclaim something like Mass Effect got for having an expansive sci-fi universe and thought, hey, why isn't Halo capitalizing on this? I feel like this sort of stuff really appeals to the hardcore fans of the Halo universe, but for the average player, it just served to push them away because too much of it was going right over their heads. A lot of people actually do like the story of Halo 4, but I've heard almost nothing but negatives in regards to the story of Halo 5, even from fans of Halo 4. I won't go into spoilers, but common criticisms involve the lack of a focus on Master Chief, a short, uneventful storyline that ends on a cliffhanger, and a plot twist that many people aren't happy about. A lot of people just aren't feeling where the series is going anymore, and it's lost that instantly understandable and engaging conflict that the original games had. The thing is, sci-fi shooters in general seem to be on the rise again, with the likes of Titanfall, Destiny, and even the Call of Duty games, which have been going in a much more interesting direction recently. This means Halo is starting to lose what made it unique, and as a result, it's being pushed to the side. What worked for Halo at the beginning of the 7th generation can't keep it afloat in gaming's current landscape. The thing is, 343 was created to maintain the status quo, and they don't really know what to do to innovate the series. So they basically looked at what was popular in the FPS scene right now and implemented as much of it as possible into Halo. Halo now has aiming down sights, kill cams, sprinting, dashing, parkour mechanics, a 4-player squad-based structure with revives, and a control scheme that now reflects those in other shooters. A lot of people don't like this stuff at all, and I understand why, especially when you remember how influential the original Halo games were and how they introduced tons of mechanics that are now standard. Playing catch up with other shooters as well as other shooters adopting a lot of what made Halo unique means the series is being squeezed out of popular culture from both directions. I don't want to be too hard on 343 though, because it could be so much worse. We've seen so many franchises be given to developers who don't care about the material at all, or worse, dislike it and want to change it into what they think is better. 343 clearly cares a lot about Halo and they're trying to make great games, and that deserves to be commended. I want to see them do better, not just dog on them for not being able to fill the insanely big shoes they were left with. They've done some great things with the series so far, and I really respect how they pushed for 60 frames per second for Halo 5 right out of the gate. We've seen developers like Naughty Dog, for example, re-release their games in 60 frames per second when they were previously 30, and praise how much better the game plays because of the smoother frame rate. Then with their next release in the series, they go right back to 30 frames per second for the added graphical quality, meaning we'll have to wait another generation for that game to be re-released just to play it at a decent frame rate. And the cycle continues. 343 put their foot down to make a statement that 60 FPS needs to be there the first time, not years later to be sold to us as some kind of privilege, which I think is awesome. But hey, I just built myself a powerful PC, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. The problem is, for every positive choice 343 makes, they have some kind of misstep somewhere else. Take the lack of split-screen co-op in Halo 5, for example. A staple of the series since the first game has been split-screen co-op, and many people feel 343 dropped the ball royally by removing this fan-favorite feature. Playing through the original Halo 2 at a friend's house cooperatively is a really fond memory I have from when I was a kid, so it's sad to see this feature removed when it can add so much to the experience. Even though the game has 3 AI characters running around at all times with you, the only way to play co-op is through Xbox Live, and that just isn't as enticing for players who just want to sit on a couch and play with their families or with their friends who don't have Xbox Ones, meaning the game loses a selling point. Then there was the major mess up that was the Master Chief Collection's launch, where the game had really bad performance problems and a barely working online component. While I'm sure this was the result of 343 being rushed to meet a deadline from Microsoft to give the Xbox One some kind of killer app, what should have been a celebration of the franchise's highest points felt like a slap in the face for longtime fans who were still holding on by a thread. The collection has subsequently been patched, but the damage was done, and it was the last straw for those who felt the subject matter should have been handled with better care. The reception of the collection surely had an effect of dampening the interest of those who were going to buy an Xbox One to scratch their Halo itch, and in turn decrease the potential customers for Halo 5. This also ties into my final point as to why the series isn't as popular these days, and that's that it's an Xbox One exclusive, and the Xbox One just isn't the cultural event that the 360 was in its time when Halo 3 came out. The series was still fresh, and there were tons of people who bought 360s knowing the next installment of Halo was coming and they had to finish the fight. For the Halo series to already be losing people and then for the console itself to begin pushing people away with poor business practices meant this was sort of inevitable. It's nice to think they could have turned the reputation of the console around by releasing an amazing Halo game that people had to take notice of, but the unfortunate truth is that the series isn't doing anything new or interesting enough for it to rise above its current level, where it's just been trying to sustain itself for the last few years. Halo has been the face of the Xbox for generations now, but that's sort of lost its meaning for the Xbox One. Like, yeah, it's the one thing the console has to its name, but that doesn't hold much weight anymore all by itself. Then you have all of the recent announcements of Xbone exclusives coming to PC, and that has completely taken away the little appeal it had for the people I know. It's slowly becoming a console with just Halo, and that just isn't enough for some people. I'll be honest, even I'm sort of regretting my Xbone purchase now that I can get the upcoming games I got it for on a much more powerful platform. At the end of the day, none of this means the series is hemorrhaging money or anything like that. I'm sure many other companies wish they had franchises that perform the way Halo still does now, it just doesn't live up to its own legacy, and I hope I've been able to lay out the various reasons why in this video. Halo just isn't the juggernaut it used to be, and that's due to a mixture of the current makeup of the first-person shooter genre and 343's inability to innovate and differentiate the series in a way that doesn't just blur the lines between it and its competition even more. Even with everything I've mentioned, I'll still be there to play Halo Wars 2 and Halo 6 because they seem like they have potential. I like this series, and it'll always interest me enough to give the next one a try. Microsoft has stated they want the series to go on for another 30 years, so I'm sure it isn't coming to an end anytime soon. I guess that gives the series plenty of time to improve, or just get more and more played out. Hopefully it can step its game up and become something tons of people can get interested in again. But as of right now, it seems like the Halo killer ended up being Halo itself in a way. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.
I'll miss you.
Wake me.